Inner peace. Inner...
Buster makes me feel...
What is up, guys? My name is Ryan World Movies, and this is going to be my first review video in quite some time now, where I'll be going over two movies that I've seen these last couple of weeks, and both of which are sequels to two long-running film franchises in pop culture. And both of which I've been holding up for way too long now to talk about here on my channel, as they've been out for a very long time now, but I've finally been able to, get back to working on making content for this channel, and this video will be covering both of them. And they are, of course, as you've probably seen by the title, Kung Fu Panda 4 and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So starting off with Kung Fu Panda 4, so this is the fourth film installment in the Kung Fu Panda franchise, and the story goes that Po's next step in his Kung Fu journey is to find and train a new successor to one day take his place as the new Dragon Warrior. Along the way, he teams up with a fox bandit thief named Zhen to defeat a new threat, an evil sorceress named the Chameleon, who has the ability to steal and impersonate the Kung Fu abilities of past Kung Fu masters, particularly previous enemies of Po, including fan favorite Tai Lung. So yeah, this is the latest and newest entry in the semi-continuation or semi-revival of the Kung Fu Panda franchise, not counting the TV shows or direct-to-video specials. And yeah, it's been 8 years since Kung Fu Panda 3 was released, so yeah, with that long of a time gap, you really gotta wonder, was it worth the wait? Doesn't the franchise still live up? And most importantly, with how much time has passed since we've last gotten a Kung Fu Panda movie, does this movie justify itself in that, or is it worthy of being called a proper sequel after all this time? Well, the simple answer is yes and no. Let me explain. On the one hand, it's just great, and quite relieving actually if I do say so myself, that we've gotten another Kung Fu Panda movie and that the series is still continuing. I was telling my friends after we watched the movie that we literally grew up with this franchise, so I guess it hits us more, because it's not just one that was made before we were born and then our parents showed it to us when we were babies, but this franchise was made when we were still in elementary school, so yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing to see how we've been seeing this franchise until now. I'm just glad to see another Kung Fu Panda movie in theaters in my lifetime, and, here's hoping that there'll be more to come, or we'll be around for more. Or as long as they want to keep making them, I guess. Especially Jack Black, like, hearing him back as Po, man. Man, the feels. You can never go wrong with Jack Black as Po. He still got it. Like, he will forever be iconic as Po. He literally is Po.
Inner peace. Inner peace. Dinner, please. Dinner with peas in a sesame soy glaze.
This is not working at all.
Kung Fu Panda 4 wouldn't be the same without him, and yeah, his voice performance continues to show that in this fourth one. And that goes for the rest of the cast. The voice acting, as always, is top-notch with these Kung Fu Panda movies. Awkwafina, Ke Huy Quan, James Hong, Bryan Cranston, Dustin Hoffman, and even Ian McShane. They all sounded like they were having a ton of fun, which makes sense, but it's been many years since the last one, so I could bet everyone's just glad to be back again. And above all, this movie is actually really funny and super entertaining. Like, the entertainment value is high on this one. And there were actually a lot of moments, the whole audience, including me and my friends, that we were just laughing our butts off. Like, not just the kids, but even all the adults in the theater as well. Which you don't hear that every day, so that's quite the achievement. It's kind of like Kung Fu Panda 4 is the Toy Story 4 of this franchise, where it's the funniest one. It may or may not be like the last time we see the main protagonist, but we'll get back to that in a second. I mean, is this what this movie's trying to be? I don't know. I'll leave that to you to decide. And finally, like with all the others, the music in this one is totally awesome. And yes, that was an unrelated Star Kid reference, and though I make no promises, this will be my last Star Kid joke on this channel. However, I will say on the other hand that as a sequel, coming back after so many years, I don't know, it doesn't really give me the same vibe as the previous films did, for some reason. I don't know if it's because I'm older now, but I don't know. I mean, is it just me? Or does it feel like this film felt cheaply made, like it was kind of on a low budget? Like, the animation looked lower in quality in comparison to the past three films. It reminded me of the animation style in its TV show, Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness, even though the animation was nothing like that at all. But it looks as though they refurbished some of the textures maybe a little too much. Like, everything looked smoother than, they usually are from what I remember seeing from the previous films. On top of all that, though, I just have a lot of issues with the story, plot, and characters itself. Like, the first thing to note here, Furious 5 is missing, for those who haven't noticed, which they are integral characters important to the overall premise of Kung Fu Panda, no matter their role, and yet they're not present. Without the presence, it all just doesn't feel right. Like, this fourth film feels like it takes place in an alternate universe, you know what I mean? Kind of like how in the most recent Pokemon animated movies, where it takes place in a completely separate alternate timeline, where Ash and Pikachu decide to go after Ho-Oh instead, therefore never going on the adventures and meeting the companions that he travels with in the original anime. I mean, they do appear at the end, which I guess there you have it. But yeah, this is why it goes back to me calling this movie acting like a semi-revival or soft reboot of the series, like in that this could be the start of a new trilogy, like some rumors are going around about this, because it sort of gives me that vibe too, but not too much. Now, in terms of the story, plot, the whole idea of Poe already having to find an heir or successor, I don't know, to me it just seems a bit rushed. Like, okay, I understand it's been like 8 years since the third one, and 16 years at this point since the first one. Whew, wow, now that I say that out loud, it really is a long time. But I feel like Poe still has so much left to do. Like, in the last film, he completely figured out what it means to be the Dragon Warrior, and now in this one, it's already asking him to move on from that title. Like, what? And on top of all that, then comes this character named Jen, who's played by Awkwafina, the Deuteragonist character of this movie, and she's fine in this movie, but however, with the whole movie setting her up to be the next Dragon Warrior, has gotten me a bit iffy. The main problem is that we don't really have a big enough connection or emotional attachment to her in order to completely root for her. Like, if we had at least one more movie to spend more time with the character, then maybe it would have worked better. But really, having a completely random character being introduced here for the first time, especially after what she puts Poe through, I'm sorry, I'm not completely buying it here. It definitely would have helped if she was a previously established character, or if she's had some kind of relation to a previous character that we've seen before, whether from previous movies or even from the television shows or specials, which I don't know how many people don't really know anybody who watched them, to be honest. For example, Tai Lung in the Legends of Awesomeness TV show is revealed to have a nephew named Pang. Like, I don't know, the concept of bringing a character like him back, that's related to a character that we've seen before, and going through an arc with him and Poe and even Shifu would have made an interesting dynamic, and would have definitely been more satisfying. Like in this example, given his history with Tai Lung, it would have made for a nice full circle moment for Tai Lung's legacy, as well as for the overall story of Kung Fu Panda, because that's how it started. So yeah, at least in my opinion, having that kind of dynamic of a previously established character or character relating to a past one that we've been following or can be more easily invested in, that would have helped to make a more satisfying outcome to this movie's attempted narrative. Speaking of villains, the villain in this movie, the Chameleon, was just okay for me. Like, the movie did a quick job in explaining her powers and the backstory, but I feel like it was just dragged out too much in the sense that, okay, she has this tongue power, like a chameleon does, obviously, that not only paralyzes, but allows her the ability to copy past Kung Fu Master's skills. But she can literally use more of that ability to get more things done much faster. Like, a lot of things in this movie could have been resolved for her if she just striked with that attack first.
Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir!
All she mostly did before the climax was complain how despite her unique set of powers, everyone talked down on her because she was just too small.
You're just too small.
Like, if you just strike them first instead of succumbing to their comments, then it definitely would have showed them. Now, there's also the plot point of past villains returning, the movie's selling point, especially Tai Lung, who I know is a fan favorite, and was what got most people excited for this movie in the first place. Like, seeing Tai Lung return was fun, he was great in the movie, but there was definitely a missed opportunity when they brought back even Lord Shen from Kung Fu Panda 2 and Kai from Kung Fu Panda 3. I mean, it probably would have been too expensive given how big Gary Oldman and J.K. Simmons are right now.
Think, Mark!
I just feel that it could have developed and made better use of this plot element. Like, it could have made this movie into sort of like a No Way Home level event, which I'm glad it ended up not being a direct copy of that either. But with bringing back major characters like this, at least utilize them instead of them just being there for the sake of, the glorified cameo purpose. You could have had a whole subplot of either the villains being brought back to gang up on Poe at first, and then maybe them teaming up with him to defeat Chameleon later, or the Chameleon recruits them under her control with her kung fu stealing abilities. So in that way it creates an even bigger, intense, and probably darker challenge for Poe. There's plenty you could play around with bringing back previous villains, but yeah, it is what it is. And in terms of other characters, yeah, Mr. Ping and Li Shan were really fun and great to see in this movie. I think they brought out the most laughs from the audience that night. Which, yeah, props to James Hong and Bryan Cranston, their chemistry is top notch. But yeah, overall, even though this movie was as fun as it can get, my friends and I surely had a very entertaining time with this one, and we were laughing back and forth, and it's just nice to see another addition to the Kung Fu Panda franchise that we've literally all grown up with. But yeah, overall, I would say this is probably the weakest of the series, with my issues regarding the plots / story and characters, how rushed things felt, and the animation being lower in quality. It feels like a cheap sequel in that it could have been so much more, and it doesn't really justify itself because we don't know whether it's an actual continuation of the current series of the past films, or it is a soft reboot of the franchise. And, you know, this movie just is one that just kind of exists, you know? I'm going to go ahead and give this movie a 7 out of 10 and a B-. Alright, next up, moving on to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the 5th installment in the Ghostbusters franchise, taking place exactly 3 years after the last film, Ghostbusters Afterlife. After coming across a mysterious orb object that unleashes a hidden, powerful, ancient evil ghost god, Garaka, the new Ghostbusters must face this new threat before it freezes the entire world with its army, and to do that they have to team up with the veteran OG Ghostbusters, whom all three make a return again, including Janine Melnitz, who I guess is now their official 4th member, taking Spengler's place, which was awesome to see the 4 veterans working together. Like with Kung Fu Panda 4, it was always nice to see the Ghostbusters on screen again. They're such iconic, staple characters in movie history as well as pop culture. You can't go wrong with them for an entertaining time at the movie theater. This movie was very entertaining, at least for me. I think I enjoy more than most of my friends do, actually. Like me and one of my best friends, when we went and watched it together, you know, whenever the Ghostbusters theme song came on, we would get overexcited, start singing along with it, and, you know, whenever a ghost was captured, we were like, "You just got busted!"
We gotta go!
Ghostbusters!
It even had some very comedic, humorous moments which we both enjoyed. A lot of the laughs came from Kumail Nanjiani's character. He certainly got the most laughs from us. And it was very nice for this movie to take place all within New York City again, after being away from it in the secluded countryside in Afterlife. And of course, on top of all that, the return of Green Slime. Glorious!
Yeah.
I think it was mainly due to most of the references I got, knowing the past 3 films, which I think you really do need to be a massive fan of this franchise and know the movies very well in order to follow and fully enjoy this one. It really is solely for the fans of the series because on its own, the plot feels a bit loose. In terms of the overall story and characters, like most of them, I honestly felt like this movie didn't really give us a lot of reason to care for them. Like Gary, Callie, Trevor, Lucky, Podcast, and even the old Ghostbusters minus the climax, most of them you can say they were just there. I mean, we do catch up with where most of them have been since these last 3 years, since the previous movie, but that's pretty much it. Like, literally, almost nothing happens or has changed about these characters by the time you finish watching this movie. They're still exactly the same as they were when the movie first began. Like, the only character that got the real, actual development was McKenna Grace's character, Phoebe, and I guess a bit of Paul Rudd's character, Gary, too, which I'm glad to see that, but even so, it wasn't nearly as engaging as it was than her arc back in the last movie, in my opinion. And I think it's because, in my opinion, there really wasn't any major engaging enough conflict between the characters in this movie. They're just thrust into the action and just go along with the story, which, nothing wrong with that either. We've seen that before, but I mean, it's not often nowadays that most movies are just casual movies where it's just action, comedy, adventure of entertainment value, where you don't have to worry about the deeper context of the story too much. So I may be sounding a little bit harsh, but the thing I liked about Afterlife was that each character had some sort of inner conflict within themselves that they had to sort out throughout the movie. And it just made them more relatable for me, whilst in this movie, pretty much none of that is present other than for Phoebe. And speaking of story, that's the other major thing I wasn't really a big fan of. And it's not even that, oh, it doesn't make sense, but nothing too important, so we can overlook that. But there's actually major narrative points where I just feel like, in my opinion at least, not a lot of it made any sense. So the selling point or unique feature of the ghost villains of this movie is that they have ice or cryogenic abilities with the power to freeze everything around them. You know, and I get that there's the whole idea of ghosts are supposed to give you this chilly feeling, or the freezing cold is a popular known connotation for ghosts. Like, something about it to me feels like they over-exaggerated that concept a bit. Like, the way they execute it here just looks and sounds silly in my personal opinion. I feel like they could have given it a more ominous tone. I mean, I know that not everything has to be serious, but, you know, for entertainment purposes, this is just fine too. Plus the fact that this battle is of fire and ice in the end just adds to the silliness, to be honest. There's two major plot points in this movie that I want to bring up. So, one is a plot device where Winston is able to construct this experimental extraction device capable of extracting the living spiritual energy out of anything, or in this case, extracting ghosts from any inanimate objects they may be possessing, which is basically kind of like the astral projection shenanigans from Doctor Strange. And they use it to try to investigate Garaka trapped inside the mysterious orb they find. The second is how, because Phoebe is suspended from any ghostbusting activity due to being underage and due to her family going along with it in order to prevent the Ghostbusters from being shut down by Mayor Walter Peck, who, by the way, is another recurring character from the previous past old Ghostbusters films. This film also delves into her character of being left out until she meets a ghost she makes friends with called Melody, who she bonds and meets several times throughout the movie. However, one of the things that Phoebe does to strengthen her friendship with Melody is to basically risk everything by using Winston's extraction machine on humans, which had never been attempted before at that point, and not just on any human, but herself, by the way. She basically risks her own life to extract her own spiritual self from her body just to get in touch with somebody that she only met for a few days, like a few days ago. And it succeeds on the first go for even just 2 minutes, like, okay. And it's suddenly revealed in the same scene that Melody was working for the villain all along, which I saw from a mile away, but Melody needed Phoebe in ghost form to perform the chant to free the ghost inside the orb, hoping that the ghost will offer Melody entry into the afterlife in exchange for her working for him. Like, what is happening? Like, see what I mean here? Like, even if Garaka needed a ghost to perform the chant, why couldn't Melody just do it herself since she's a ghost already? And why would she even work for him anyway? You know, when clearly Garaka isn't one to go along with deals, you know, given his history and all that we learn of in the movie. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if it's just me that I didn't follow the film clearly enough, or the movie really didn't have things that made a lot of sense, or the idea sounded better on paper. But yeah, overall, like with Kung Fu Panda 4, my friend and I surely had a fun and entertaining time watching the movie, and there were plenty of times that got good laughs out of us. And seeing things from past films, especially the Green Slime Man, and how they're integrated into the plot is always fun to see. However, again, the characters and story just really didn't do it for me personally. Like, parts of the story just seemed so nonsensical and too silly, and a lot of the characters were just there. Like, they didn't get a lot of development for us to care or root for them enough. And I feel like this whole Frozen concept could have been a bit more serious than comedic given the ghostly tone it's trying to give off. But again, nothing wrong with movies for just pure entertainment, popcorn, and fun. I still think it's something that we do need more of nowadays. But yeah, for a sequel to the Ghostbusters, this is probably one of the weaker ones. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 6 out of 10 and a C+. Alright guys, that's going to be my time. Don't forget to check out the playlist of all the things that I'll be covering this year in 2024 in the description below. And if you like this, be sure to smash the subscribe button in the face so you can look forward to more videos like this. And don't forget to leave a like on this video because that'll help out a ton. And don't forget to share this around to those who may be fans of either Kung Fu Panda or Ghostbusters or movies and TV shows in general. But that's all that's going to do for me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I condensed this video as much as possible for you guys. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Rhinos, roll out, take care.